Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Unfiltered Tea. I'm Aurora, and we're doing a light show. We were off last week. There were birthdays, there were emergencies. It was a thing. Life happened. Life happened. But we're back, and because of life things, we decided we would keep it light, fun. Um Also, we had to say goodbye to two of our favorite television programs over the last couple of weeks, and so we have used that as our launching off point for tonight. So we are saying so long and farewell to some of our favorite shows. And I can't do that without singing the rest of the line in my head. I can't do it. It happens every time. Every time. Um and yeah, we're just gonna have a little chit chat about TV. So as you're watching this, drop likes and subscribes and comments and tell us what you're watching. What are your favorite shows? we do, we do, we do. Give us our Sally Field moment. That's our dream. I promise, I will do a Sally Field rendition once we hit how many subscribers? 1,000? When we hit 1,000 subscribers, that feels like a nice number. When we hit 1,000 subscribers, I promise to do my very best Sally Field Oscar speech. I promise. I'll even try and feather my hair and stuff. I will do my very best. So, see, crazy wonderful things to look forward to in the future. Um, so yeah, and also I'm gonna start by saying I can't guarantee that there aren't going to be any spoilers in this. So, especially of Ted Lasso and Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. So, if you have not seen them and you are going to, if you have not watched the final episodes and you are going to, if you are behind, that's fine. Come back and watch this when you're done. But for now, go. Go watch another episode right now. Watch them, not us. Because I don't want to ruin anything for you. And we might. And so I wanted to get that out of the way from the get-go because I don't want I don't want to be like, oops, spoilers halfway through. So those are the two shows for sure. And the other ones, everything else were all the other TV shows I think we're talking about have been out for long enough that if you haven't seen all of it, sorry, you're out of luck. Like after like 5, 6 years of being off the air, I'm allowed to give away the ending. That's gonna happen. I mean, yes. Well, I think we with our categories and stuff, I am gonna try and do the swoopy thing in between some stuff. So I'm just looking at my notes now. What makes a good show? Let's start with that. Well, let me swoop and we'll go into that. And thank you. Thank you. Swoopy swoop. Tea spilled. One of these days, I'm going to fix that up so that we have a little thing that does the thing that I don't know why. It makes me giggle. Hi, welcome to Aurora's. It's Friday stream of consciousness. Hi, guys. What makes a good show, Mandy? What do you think makes what makes a TV show that gets you to keep watching it? Mhm. Yep. Mhm. Lost, yes, which I had to make you tell me the ending to. I went 10 years internet, I went 10 years with the internet, and I could not get anybody to tell me the ending, and no, I couldn't make it to the end of that show. I had to corner Mandy on the phone and be like, "What was the ending? You need to tell me. I'm never gonna watch the whole thing." I tried to watch Lost 3 times. 3 times. Yes, I tried to watch Lost the first time when it hit the airwaves, when it was brand new, and then I tried to watch Lost when you could get it on DVD through Netflix back in the old days, and then I tried when it went to all streaming on Netflix. I tried to watch it there, and I made it the same length every time, which is about episode 5 of season 1. I just I couldn't I every now and then I would try, but yeah, 3 times I tried. Couldn't do it. Couldn't do it. And it wasn't badly written or anything, I just couldn't that character investment, I couldn't do it with those characters. There was just something that I loved the cast, I wanted to see everything, but I couldn't get invested. Like, just yeah, I should have tried watching it on mute or something and not cared and just put it on in the background. That would have been great background material. Oh, I might have to try that at some point just to do it, because then I might actually see the whole thing. If I just watch the scenery and I don't pay attention to anything, I might actually get somewhere with it. I probably won't. I'm bad. I'm a comedy girl most of the time, so yes. Yeah. Yeah. And it is. Well, I mean, in so many ways, I think that's what a lot of the creators are aiming for, right? So, like, there's in this conversation as it's been coming up with the ending of, say, Ted Lasso, which is 3 seasons at this point, unless and until they find a different story arc to follow. Um, but then you get some others that are, West Wing 8 seasons or Fringe 5 seasons or um, something along those lines. And it's that I'll use Fringe versus Ted Lasso because, in one sense, they're completely different um, things, but it's the writing style because I'm the one that does all the interview things and stuff like I want to know everything about what's behind the camera as well as all the things in front of the camera. Um, and sometimes it means I don't want to watch the show anymore, but most of the time it makes me feel like I'm in the room and I always want to be in the room where it happens. So um and so with Fringe, like what they did was they had a setup and then they didn't okay, yes, camera, I'm talking about Fringe, but really? Really? What are we doing? What are we doing? Me. Hello? There we go. Almost. It's like as soon as it said Fringe, my camera was like, "Oh, no, 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 no. We're not. We're But the writing style for Fringe was in their writers' room, like they had their characters and stuff like that, but they didn't know where they were going. But they would leave themselves these little breadcrumbs to then circle back to, which led to one of my favorite endings. And I'm one of 9 people in outside of the writers' room, I think, that loved the ending for Fringe. For me, that was the only way that show could have possibly ended. Um, and yes. Yep. Right. Walter. Yes. Yep. It's like you're going along, you'll be in the middle of this really heart-wrenching moment, and somebody comes out with a sassy one-liner from somewhere, and you're just like, "There's a train wreck in the backyard?" Like, you all are going towards a train wreck that has involved an alien in some alternate universe and all these things, and now's the time you make some sassy comment about somebody's hair? Okay, I'm here for it. Like, oh, yeah, and so they left themselves all these little breadcrumbs so that for each season it could be like, "Oh, let's pull this thread, let's pull this thread, let's pull this thread." And then when they hit the end, it was like, "Okay, we need to be done." And they sort of went back and found the threads. Again, this is all based on reading from like 10 years ago, so if you know better, correct me, please. Um, but yeah, and then they tied it all up at the end, and like with I like a show that ends in the way that theirs did, which is you can come back to it in 10 years, you can come back to it in 20 years, you can do a one-off, whatever. The characters are all still there and fully formed, and the writing didn't derail on them at any point. And so you can come back to it later, but it's okay to leave it where it is. And that was sort of the complete opposite of Ted Lasso, where Jason Sudeikis had the 3 seasons mapped out. This is a story we want to tell. This is what we're going into. And I caught one interview where, again, I've watched a lot of interviews, so I might be mixing things up. That's just my disclaimer on this. Where he talks about the writers and him had flags for all of the major points in all 3 seasons of we need to get to this point, we need to get to this point, we need to get to this point, and then that's our story. So it was a complete opposite of Fringe that was like, I don't know, let's see what happens. And Lasso, where they were like, here's the story we are going to tell. And it's a clear story, and I I could see more opportunities for Fringe coming back. With Lasso, I see opportunities for their stories, but possibly with a different crew or different writers or something along those lines. It worked. The ending worked for me. I was so afraid. I was like, how are they going to tie this up? And then I saw the season finale, and I was like, they were right. There's no there's no other ending for this. They were right. They were right. Okay. 3 seasons. But I thought that was interesting to me, the different story arcs. And then you get like Schitt's Creek, which was 6 seasons, perfect length, in my own personal opinion. Took me a while to get into it, but once those characters hit you, man, you can't, it's all about the character. You can't let them go. You gotta keep. Gotta keep watching it. I went off on a rabbit hole. I'm sorry. It is like a dating profile though, and it's all about the character and wanting to spend time with whoever is on the screen. Like, ah, okay. Yep. Oh no. We just get to look at your beautiful headshot for a little while. Um, yeah. So, yeah, it's funny with Schitt's Creek, it was, Schitt's Creek for me, I think it was episode 5 or 6, and that was it became a Venn diagram of different people that told me I needed to watch it that never agree on television, ever. And so I finally gave it a shot, but it took me a while before I could get it in there. Took me a while before I could dive into Schitt's Creek entirely. Um, Hello, you're back. That is okay. We gotta love technology. Um, yeah, it's funny. Schitt's Creek is one that, and you know what's hilarious about Schitt's Creek? It took me until episode 5 or 6, 4, 5, 6, I don't know, somewhere in there before I was like, okay, that's it. I'm here for the long haul. But when I went back to do a rewatch to try and introduce my parents to it, I have not gotten them to the correct episode where the characters hook them yet. um, but I went back and rewatched the first episode with them, and I realized there are jokes in that first episode where you don't get the punchline for 3 seasons. It's there. Which is, yes. So that was absolutely brilliant. Um, and I mean, I guess I totally distracted myself with my notes, and I realized that um I'm gonna swoop because now we're now I think we should talk a little Ted Lasso, Marvelous Mrs. Maisel specifically, before going into, because it that does lead into when should a show end? When do we say goodbye? And I think everybody in TV right now can learn from Amy Sherman Palladino and Jason Sudeikis, um, and the other writers in the writer room, for how to tie up a show. But yeah, I'm technology and me. It's hot here in Maine. We are not built for the heat. It's like it's like putting a husky in Florida. Don't do it. It's not good for us. Um, so yeah, we said goodbye to Ted Lasso and Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Were you already watching Marvelous Mrs. Maisel when I? Okay, same. Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, that only took 1 episode for me where it was like, "I'm in. I'm in for whatever ride you're gonna give me." Also, I'm a soapbox for a second because I keep hearing this in all the news media, and I've not seen one single interview with Amy Sherman Palladino where she says this. So y'all need to just shush about it because it ain't true from everything that I have seen. Marvelous Mrs. Maisel is a character unto herself. She is not Joan Rivers. Not the same. Marvelous Mrs. Maisel is Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. She is Midge Maisel. She is the character that was created by the Palladinos and Rachel Brosnahan. She deserves all of that credit there. Stand up comedy, women in stand up, women saying shit that men get uncomfortable by when it comes out of a woman's face has been going on for ages. And there were some lovely tips of the hat to, like, Wanda Sykes playing the great and wonderful Moms Mabley, and some other things in that show. So I had to soapbox there for a moment because I keep hearing reporters, people who should know better, talking about Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. "Oh, she's Joan Rivers. Oh, she's" No, that does a disservice to Joan Rivers and a real disservice to Palladino and Maisel and Rachel Brosnahan, the entire creative team. Sorry. Okay. Sorry. Now uh-huh. It's not how fiction works. That's the next great TV show, just for anybody who wants to write that. Mhm. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I just I needed to get that out there because I do feel like the character of Midge Maisel is her own creation entirely unto herself. Now, do I think that we could have seen episodes had it kept going of Midge and Joan hanging out? Absolutely. Um, and there are some style choices that it's like, okay, I see where the inspiration was in that. But there's also some style choices like Susie is in its own way. If you take a look at pictures of Moms Mabley off stage, she's often in a three-piece suit and was known as Mr. Moms off stage. So there's a little, I would wager that Palladino, being the brilliant showrunner that she is, probably knew that and had some say in that notion of because that's one example. There were Susies wandering around New York back then. There were. Um, and yeah, so that's got up on my soapbox. um, and I think some people need to like they can't quite fathom a woman actually doing that. So they just attribute it to the one white woman comic who was a little sassy at that time, but also, like, had the dress and had the look and, it was that Joan Rivers was the only one that embodied that look for what people remember. So I think that's maybe why they have to do that, but it's she was. She was, and she worked her whole life. She was a workhorse, and I appreciate all of the work that she did and things like that. I mean, it's actually I'm thinking neurospicy brain moment, the scene where Joan Rivers the scene in Hot in Cleveland, which is another great show that I need to go back and rewatch. Um, and the scene where Joan Rivers plays Betty White's identical twin sister. Which is seriously one of the funniest episodes. I mean, and that was a laugh riot as well. Um, but yeah, I Maisel. So let me ask you a question, Mandy, because we are having a debate in this household. Okay. We talked about this a little bit before we started recording. The production value on Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, all of it, from writing to costumes to lighting to every that crew deserves all of the awards because they created a fucking masterpiece. Sorry for swearing, but that was a required expletive. Um, from costumes to all the things. I argue in this household that the Ted Lasso production crew is on par, but it's more invisible because it's set now, not 70 years ago. Mhm. Mhm. Right. Yeah, I got that. You got there before I did. Yep. Yeah. Yep. Yep. And there is choreography in both as well, which is that was one of the biggest debates. I can't I can't even imagine. I mean, it would strike me at least that there's gotta be some choreography in all of that, and some sheer guesswork and other things. And yeah, okay, thank you. So yeah, if you're watching for production value, I, I'm doing a rewatch of Ted Lasso with my parents right now. So I like got most of the way through season 2, and then I needed to just put a pin in it for a little while because I was very sad, and so I needed to wait for season 3 so I could just plow right through. Um, and we got talking about that, and my dad is very like Maisel's better, and I'm like Lasso that they're the sames across the board. Um, and one of the reasons that I say that's like the scene where Sam Obisanya is looking for a reason, looking for the sign from the universe. And I didn't notice it on the first watch. And I know my folks didn't notice it. You see the first jersey that has Obisanya on the back. But what it took me twice of watching is every other player in that little pickup game has the Dubai Air, has the black tape across the Dubai Air, which is directly speaking to the character of Sam in that moment as well, because he's the one that did that. And for me, that is a production value thing that is so minute, wouldn't have needed to happen. They could have just put them all in banter jerseys or whatever, and it would have been fine. But it's the first of all, those things are freaking expensive. So I appreciate that they were old jerseys because yeah, once if you are a sports ball fan of any sports ball, as I am, you spend an inordinate amount of money on a jersey or two of your choice and a few t-shirts here and there. But to get a new jersey like every season isn't gonna happen for most of us who work like normal people jobs. So just saying, I appreciated that on so many levels because there was so much thought that went into it. Sort of like the Lego set, which also is damn impressive. Somebody built an actual Lego set to be used in the things because you can't fake that. You can't fake Legos. Legos are Legos. Sorry, I'm soapboxing again. I apologize, everybody. I am going to miss those shows. I am going to miss those shows. I did too. Mhm. Yes. Oh, I think so, and I think we've gotten away. We're coming back to it with the dawn of streaming now. There, it feels like there's more thought being put into it with streaming than there has been in the past. But like the 80s was the golden era of theme music. Um, I mean, if I go, thank you for being a friend, everybody knows what show we're watching. Um, and I think we've gotten back to that, and it just sort of sets up the tone of the whole show too, which I kinda like. I like Yes. Yes! It is. Mhm. Yeah. Cheers! Cheers! Again, I didn't feel like that went on too long, though, but that was another, like, you can play the theme song from Cheers anywhere, anytime, and there will be a group of people that will start singing along. There will be. It's just gonna happen. Um, and they played that whole song. They played the whole song. Golden Girls cut out part of the song. Um, yeah, I think it did. Ugh, and that's why I like some of the shows on the streaming services because I'm already paying for it, so the ads are different and, um, how did oh, Ted Lasso Easter egg that you probably caught in the kebab shop. Again, a second round thing that it took me to before I was like, "Wait, pause." Did you catch the 3 pictures in the kebab shop? One of them being, George Wendt, who is Jason Sudeikis' uncle. Yes! So, go back. Yes! 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 Yes. Uh-huh. And this is where ADHD can be, like, a little bit or neurospicy, whatever it is, can be a little bit of a superpower because my brain went, "Cheers," and then went, "Oh, yeah, the Easter egg," and then gotta tell Mandy. So, and the internet. Yes. No, if you have not okay, so anybody who's already watched all of Ted Lasso, go back and watch the one in the kebab shop where he's trying to get Roy to come be a coach. Go do the thing. Um, because there's a shot of 3 images, and I cannot remember who the far right image is. I need to go back and look it up. It might actually be I can't think of his name, who wrote the theme song for Lasso, but I'm not certain of that. Um, and then it's Roy Kent, and then it's George Wendt, and I had to hit pause to see what he wrote on it, and it was, like, something like "the best kebab" or something like that. But yes, he is that is Jason Sudeikis's uncle. Um, so for that little Easter egg, that is a production value thing that I adore because there are probably whoever put that up there, Jason Sudeikis, um, and like 3 other people that knew that that was gonna be there, and there's not enough time spent on it, and everybody zeroes in on Roy, obviously, and you're not necessarily paying attention to the others. But that's like a little inside joke that when I find it, it makes me giggle. Yep. My parents have just entered season 2, which is funny because my mom was like, "Nate went gray really fast." And I was like, "Remind me to tell you a story about that from one of the 4 million YouTube interviews that I have seen with Jason Sudeikis." Um, because there is a reason for it. It was a choice. The whole like, it is part of the whole character arc and story and thing, um, with him. And so I'm waiting to tell my mom, but I've already warned you, internet. So you can go find. I've already warned you about spoilers. So guess what? You're getting my little piece of knowledge from one of the 4 million things. So it's I'm go find one of the interviews to get the actual backstory. But like, when your body tells you with alopecia or something like that, like, whatever you are doing right now is wrong and you should not be doing this anymore. That was for, I think Jason Sudeikis talked about like getting a couple of alopecia spots in his beard. And during one of those points in life where it's like, ugh, all the stress and none of the answers and things like that. And so it was toying with that with the character of Nate as he goes down that journey and takes that path that is not ultimately the path he wants to be on and not ultimately the path he stays on. And kudos to the actor who signed on to be absolutely hated for an entire season. Like, truly hated, and in a way that is different than if you just start off evil. And it's like, we can all agree that Rupert is a dick. Fine. Um, but when you've fallen in love with a character and then they make bad choices for a season, to agree to do that and to stand by and just kind of be like, I'm going to be quiet because you're good at like watching some of the interviews and you could sort of see on everybody's face, like, you're going to regret this question. When we reach the end, you're going to regret this question. But they all just kind of humored it. And I just, not that any of them will ever see this, but kudos. If you ever come across it, that is impressive. And I am super impressed. So, um, yeah, I was going somewhere else with that, and then I got distracted. Yes. Mhm. Yeah. Mm, mm. Exactly. It's it's like when with yeah, yeah, Die Hard would be the exception. He plays bad so good, but it's so funny because so many guys play are wonderful human beings, and they play bad so well. Like, when you're playing a villain, I know one of 2 things. Either you are actually a villain, or you are one of the kindest, sweetest people on the face of the planet. Because if you've got a gray area, you can't play a villain very well. If you are either just a heart of gold or pure evil, like you, you could do that. But and casting is so much of it. Casting is king. Casting is king, especially with a TV show. Like with a TV show, um, casting is absolutely king. If you don't have the right group of people working together, it's never going to be a good show. And I could go on for hours about this particular thing and these things. I'm going to say so long and farewell to Ted Lasso. Thank you for 3 series. That was brilliant and perfect. And thank you for giving us a male character who recognizes his whiteness, his straightness, his cisness in a way that isn't weird, in a way that isn't a hero complex and things like that. We needed that on the heels of Don Draper, and we did. We needed that on the heels of characters like Don Draper. Absolutely. Um, he's not. And he's mhm, yeah. And it's the same with Maisel too. We needed a strong female character, lots of them that are just they are who they are, and that's actually a whole different conversation. We needed a little more of that grit and edge of like, how many times do those children get left alone? Because I mean, I know that was common in the 50s, but the sheer number of times that the Maisel family as a whole, Maisels and the Weissmans, just are so self-absorbed. All of them. They just leave the kids. And I appreciated that. And I appreciated the conversations that happened um, on the female side of things, of these women coming up to eventually rule their little corners of the world. And like, there are a million Susies out there with dicks, and we don't harp on how nasty they are. We don't harp on their bad attitude or things like that. And with Susie, it became this joke that she wasn't allowed to have that attitude because she had boobs. Okay. Not that, but then there was also the joke of nobody noticing that she had boobs until the last episode, which I also appreciated. When did you get tits? I've always had them. What's wrong with you? Yes, yes. It was great. Um, and yeah, I appreciated actually that they gave the women a little more of that. They weren't. It wasn't like Midge Maisel was a perfect mother and comic and stuff like that. She wasn't. She wasn't. She was a great comic. She was a terrible mother, and she kind of knew it. She loved her kids, but it's not really surprising to me that one of them ends up living in a kibbutz about as far away from her as he can get. And the other one is in as much therapy as anybody can pay for her to have. This is not a surprise to me. I kind of appreciated that they did show us that. Um, it was, yeah, yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Mhm. 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 Mm. I will be entirely honest, after that episode, I was like, "Okay." And my parents were like, "What?" And I was like, "We have 3 episodes left," or however much it was. I was like, "I trust that they're gonna land the plane. I trust them. They haven't let me down yet. 5 seasons haven't let me down yet." I am nervous 'cause I just couldn't see how we got there. Couldn't see what the point was. Like, I might get it on a rewatch, but yeah, I Mm, yep. Mhm. Yeah, I know. Well, and there were some weird things, like, some lines in there that indicated that mom wasn't I couldn't tell, it was like, did mom have Alzheimer's? Did mom have a stroke? Did she have cancer? Like, clearly something has gone on here, but you don't tell me what we are working with, and the list for is, like, this long, and I can't Oh my god, that's right! I don't know. Yeah, 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 I wanted either not the whole like, I either wanted more of an understanding about the commercial happening, like the pre-story to the commercial, or the post story to the I needed to know why we were doing this, and that was just there, and I was like, I mean, there's a lot of things here. There are things that I did appreciate, like ending the show before we have to lose Lenny. I appreciated that very, very much because we all know where that was going, and truly, I appreciate how they handled saying goodbye to Lenny in the show. I thought that was needed. I absolutely thought that that was needed. Um, but yeah, with mom, I needed there were a few things like that where I was like, I need either this scene to entirely not be here at all, or I need you to give me 3 more minutes that tells me why I'm here. Which is why I got very nervous at a couple of those points because there were too many of those that were just like little breadcrumbs that were there that if they were going on for another season or two, like, okay, but I have to do a rewatch. I don't know. I don't know. It's okay. Mhm. Well, let us know in the comments. Do you want Mandy and I to come back and do a whole, like, Joel, Midge, their relationship? Do we wanna do a whole, like, TV relationships show at some point or something like that? I mean, that could be fun. So let us know. Joel and Midge specifically, TV relationships in general. Let us know. Let us know. I am going to do a little swoopy swoop, and then you might just get me for a minute. Mandy's having some technical stuff, so I'm going to do the swoop. We're going to get back into the next topic, and hopefully Mandy will be able to, like, jump back in. Um, and if I end up there for too long, then you know you'll see an edit or something. So I'm gonna go ahead and swoop while we're doing that so that we can move on. It's Friday night. We're long, we're rambling, and I love it, and it's okay. Um, so we're moving on to when should a show end? We covered a little bit of it earlier with Ted Lasso's 3-season story arc. I'm sorry. It's one of Lasso and Maisel are two of the best shows ever to hit our waves in since television was invented, and it's going to take a lot for me to change my mind on that. But then we've got God, Newsroom was another 3-season one, and I'm going to wait to go into Newsroom um, a little bit more until Mandy is back with us, hopefully. Um, But we've got you've got the shows like ER. Mandy watched way more of ER than I ever did. Mandy managed to last with Grey's a heck of a lot longer than I did. I couldn't with Grey's. I think I want to say I lasted like 5 or 6 seasons with Grey's, and then I was over it. Then I was just done. Um, because at some point the plot of Grey's literally just started repeating. And I couldn't tell, like, I've seen it already. So I couldn't understand why I was watching the same thing but with different faces. It was very weird. I was not a fan. Um Now I will say Mandy and I can go into more depth when she comes back as well, but Lucifer, man, if y'all have not seen Lucifer, realize I have no right to say y'all, but I do. It happens. Um, I promise you, watching Lucifer is worth it because that was a show that phew, they're like 6 seasons. The first 3 seasons were old school television, so 26 half-hour episodes. Then they went. Then they got canceled. Then Netflix said, "No, we'll take you on." So then the seasons like get cut in half, and then it was, well, you might get a season. And so it was like canceled. No, not canceled, but maybe canceled next year, but maybe not. So there is at least, so there's like a season where everything got tried to get all wrapped up. And then, okay, we're back. So we need to unpack some of it and set you back up for this season. And then the season after that was just like, we have no idea what's happening. We're just gonna have fun and write stories that just happen and just throw things at the wall. And Mandy is back. Mandy's back. Hi. I was going through, shows like when should a show end, and I was, going through some stuff, with the so I was in the middle of talking about Lucifer and, like, the season where they were canceled, then they were not canceled, then they weren't sure if they were gonna get another season, so they just threw whatever out there and had a blast. Every time God showed up, they was singing. It was a whole musical season, which frankly made a lot more sense in Lucifer than it ever did in Grace, which is another one that I was like, did I watch until season 7 or season 8? I don't know. I've told our lovely audience I stopped watching when it was just the same script on repeat again, but with different people saying it. Mm. Right, right, right. Yeah, that fits. I have not talked about ER yet. I think I mentioned it, and I was like, "No, we're gonna wait for Mandy to come back to discuss ER," because I remember you and I being on the phone at one point, and I was like, "Wait, you're still watching ER?" And you were like, "Yes, I've given it 8 seasons of my life. I'm gonna watch until the end." Yeah, yeah, thousands, I think, yeah. I think 3, 5, and 7 if you're pushing it. Like, I just don't think that beyond 7, you can I'm truly trying to think of anything other than a soap opera or pardon me, something like SNL that is not the same, but just kind of I'm trying to think of anything that I mean, I'm old enough that I remember when The Cosby Show broke records for going into a season 8. Like, they broke it was all over the TV guide. It was all over every publication, that now I'm sure all of those things have been like, "We're just gonna quietly remove that from the archives." But it was a huge deal that a show went beyond 7 seasons at the time. So I'm trying to think of Law& and Order. Law& and Order. You don't. Mm-mm. Yep. Nope. Right. Yep. Yeah. No, I couldn't I it's there is so much I feel like I need to explain myself a little bit because I am the dichotomy that thinks American Psycho is one of the greatest films ever, even though I'm not a horror movie person or into that sort of thing at all, but it hit just so close to home with this sort of but was just enough of a caricature of this toxic person that it worked for me, and I know it's not the same as Dexter, but I needed to, like, preface that with things that people know. Um, I can and do often fall asleep to true crime, ID Channel, Oxygen, Dateline, on endless repeat, those sorts of things. Um, when I'm watching fiction, there is so much garbage and trash and toxicity in the world that even an anti-hero like Dexter, I can't do it. I can't it's why I never got into Breaking Bad. I saw most of the 1st season and I couldn't do it for the same reason, is that we need more Ted Lassos and Joel Maisels in the world. I know he's kind of a douche canoe in the beginning, but, um, he he is, but he he has the ability to evolve, and that gets made clear. So there's if I'm watching fictional shows, I want to see more aspirational characters, not somebody like Dexter. Does that make any sense? Mhm. Yep. Right. Mhm. Mhm. Yep. Right. Yes. Mhm. When the writer's strike is over, if anybody wants to come back and do a one-off of Fringe, I will be there. I will watch it. Sorry. Have you gone back to see the reboot of Leverage? You never watched Leverage? How did I I would. Go with the original first. 1, because the cameos that they get in that show are spectacular. Although, when they come back to it, Noah Wyle is a character, so, that is also super fun. Um, I Leverage was one of my favorites because it had that complexity of character, but it was also that it was a real anti-hero, but the whole theme of the show is who's really the bad guy? Because technically, your entire cast that you are rooting for, technically they are the bad guy. But you always want them to win because the good guys are the, airline corporations that are trying to get people to, not sue them even though they, crashed a plane and things like that. I mean, it's that kind of a thing. Little things. The humor, the one-liners, the absolute ridiculousness. I mean, there are scenes in that show where you have somebody like in an air duct and they're like, "I'm not moving forward until you agree that I'm right." Like, guys, we have 90 seconds to pull off a Mission Impossible moment. Can you just do this? And it so anyway, highly recommend that. I can't remember if that went for 5 or 7, but again, prime numbers 3, 5, 7, and sometimes I think 7 is pushing it most of the time. 7 is like it works for a show. West Wing. Yep. Yeah. If you didn't know that, like, oh, let's see, West Wing, which only changed everything about how television is shot and written and done. I mean, it was a brilliant show. The production value. See, West Wing was that is also one of the greatest television programs in the history of television, I think. Mhm. It does. It really does. It doesn't feel well, I mean, it's actually kind of funny because when Jen Psaki first came out on the podium for Joe Biden, I was like, "She's a West Wing fan." She watched that as a kid and wanted to be CJ. I will lay money on it, and then I saw an interview where she said basically that, and I was like, "Yes." Um, also watching Allison Janney be starstruck over Jen Psaki, who were starstruck over Allison Janney, like, seriously one of the greatest random things that has gone up on CNN or whatever, um, in a while. So, okay, I have to ask you a question in the when should shows end? I'm still mad that Newsroom didn't give us 5 seasons. Mhm, mhm, right. Yeah, you just need to yeah, I'm doing that with Ted Lasso right now. Huh? Uh-huh. Yeah. I'm gonna come back to that in a second actually, because I that reminds me. I I mean, taking into account the fact that that writer's room was Aaron Sorkin because he doesn't, um, delegate well from everything I've heard. He writes it or it doesn't happen. Um, and that is a fatal flaw in and of itself, because truly, I think if he had surrounded himself with really good writers, he he would have gotten 5 seasons and wouldn't have had to write everything himself. And the women characters probably could have I mean, I love the women characters, all of them in the newsroom. And yeah, had there been some estrogen in the writer's room, I would be amazed at what we would have ended up seeing. I think we would have ended up seeing we could have had 5 seasons and it would have been freaking brilliant. Sorkin doesn't work that way, that's fine, we get 3 seasons in the newsroom. If you wanna take down the ladies, like, let's think of who was writing them and give him props, because what you should have them watch is I'm gonna actually swoop on this one because I'm a Warner audience. I'm gonna have Mandy virtually send a buzzer my way or something if I go on for longer than 2 minutes, because it is not fair to the folks doing this new show, but I have to have a minute to talk about female characters, writers, that kinda thing. Again, because I know there were a lot of dudes in the Ted Lasso writing room, but Keely and Rebecca are 2, and Dr. Sharon, and even Jane, although I don't like her in any way, shape, or form. Um, it's May. Like, you can just tell every single woman in the world of Ted Lasso is three-dimensional. They're wonderful, they're witty, they're funny, they have flaws, they are not perfect, you know, and watching all of them find their sassy and Nora, watching them find their strength and lift each other up and just constantly like be there for each other to balance each other out and in turn actually teach all the boys how to do that for each other through the 3 seasons. Um, so yeah, I'm gonna swoop and we're gonna have I because I started a new show and that is 2 hours of my life I cannot get back. So if we're gonna talk about the newsroom and the unfortunate female characters, I have some words. I have some words. I'm gonna I am okay. I'm gonna start this by putting this out there right from the get-go. Seth Rogen is on my coffee list. He strikes me as somebody that would be very fascinating to have a cup of coffee with. However, get more estrogen in your writer's room. Literally any estrogen in your writer's room. If there is only one female writer in that writer's room, it is abundantly clear with your new show, which I want to like. It's the perfect middle aged show. I want to watch it. I've watched 2 episodes. Don't, don't, mm. I would love to come back to it. The cast is brilliant. Love the cast. There is not a planet that I can conceive of where a woman who is generally pretty happy in her life would take 72 hours of reconnecting with a friend for the first time in 5 years and go from not entirely sober, but generally hardworking mom in love with her husband, doing date nights with the whole family, to day drinking with her now deadbeat, sort of, but not really, college buddy. Like, that's not a thing. It's not a thing. No. No. You're actually a better one for me to ask this of. I'm gonna spill some plot points. I've only seen 2 episodes. I have no idea where the show is going. I can't go back to it. I needed to literally binge watch, like, 4 episodes of Ted Lasso after that because the writing for the female characters was so one-dimensional. It was like, what's that? What the Knocked Up all over again, where I was just like, I why this is not have you talked to the women you're married to? Like, at all? I know you have. Like, ha has a woman read this? Mhm. Hmm. True. Yeah. 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 Well, and so much of the issues that I have with it is, like, she's not, like, ostracized from her mom. The setup is, like, these 2 college friends haven't talked in, like, 5 or 6 years. This is a show that was designed for a viewer like me, okay? My college buddies back in the day were Mandy and a bunch of guys, and I have lost touch with a lot of the guys as we've all grown up and got married or not and, moved to different parts of the country and things like that. There is a scene in actually the entire plot of the 2nd episode. I It was different. There weren't actual marriages or homes being owned at the time, but literally went through the entire thing. Like, it had to do with custody of a lizard. Been there, done that. I was the one going, "Go get custody of that lizard. You deserve it. This was your lizard." Um, so I mean, it was like, were you in college with me, Seth? Did I miss you there? I mean, there was some hazy bits. I don't know. We're about the same age. So the idea of reconnecting with your best friend who happens to be the opposite sex is like, okay, this can be a fun show. Except they're both caricatures of each other. It's not like, it's like his character is running a brewery and she's a stay-at-home mom and actually likes her husband, which is great. That's a wonderful shift. She's got 3 kids, she's got a decent home, she likes her husband, she's got mom friends too. It's not like she's, the ostracized one. Like, I'm trying to, and then we go from that to, I'm just gonna start lying to my husband for no reason and hanging out with this guy and doing super irresponsible things and stuff like that. And I'm like, you have kids under the age of 5, like, or under the age of 10 at least. I'm like, I don't know anybody in this setup situation that is gonna do that. And it's just, so anyway, I was very disappointed in it so far. Mm, yeah, it's, and I could be wrong. I only gave it 2 episodes. I just did the thing where after the 2 episodes, I was like, "Ugh, I can't." And then I read the descriptions of the ones that they had on there, and I was like, I can't. No, that's not a jump. That's not a jump that we can. So I'm disappointed because I want Seth Rogen to do that kind of a comedy. But god damn it, get Ali Wong in the room with you or something. She's been writing like crazy. Like, I can think of so many female comics, and I watched the credits. There's a whole bunch of dudes and 1 woman. Right. Mm-mm. I There's so much potential there. Yes. Oh, that's Eugene Levy, right? Okay. I mean, I will have to look that up. I did just finish Rise of the Pink Ladies. I I thoroughly enjoy Rise of the Pink Ladies, but then again, it is truly a well-written thank you card slash love letter to the original movie slash play of Grease. Um, if you're watching Rise of the Pink Ladies and you haven't seen Grease, like, you're missing half the jokes and references. And that, like, if ever there was a show about high school kids designed specifically for 40 to 50-year-old women, it's this. Um, the points that I will give it credit, I'm going to give it big credit in the cast is not all white. There are s some mentions of that, although it's not focused on. Um, there is a non-binary character in the thing. There's definitely it's a show for the kids that are not on the straight and narrow, if you will. Um, so there is dealing with sexism and misogyny and alcoholism and delinquency and poverty versus all of that, and it's all done under this musical thing. It's a musical. Every episode is a musical. So at some point, everybody busts out into song and perfect dance choreography. Um, as we all do. Um, and I do enjoy it. It's fun. It gets I feel like I'm a little too old for some of the things that they're aiming for on that. I I would like to watch this actually with Morgan. I would like Morgan's take on this. 'Cause I mean, they're about her age-ish, anyway, all these kids are about her age, and but as a Grease fan, like, we see Frenchie in there, but as a 12-year-old, she's a character as, like, a 12-year-old, so it's just, oh, she's adorable. Because it is the rise of the Pink Lady, so we've gotten through 1 season, and there's some surprising depth and issues dealt with in it, but it's still just a kind of a fun musical. I haven't decided if I'm coming back to it next season or not. It didn't it didn't send me careening off of a cliff. I love I mean, my favorite character in Grease is Rizzo, clearly. Um, and it's how to put this? It feels like Rise of the Pink Ladies is what Rizzo would have written if she ended up in the theater in, you know, 20 years later, 30 years later, which is why I kind of love it because it's like, it feels like it's got Rizzo's hand on it more than anything else. But that, again, that writer's room, because you know me, and I do the dive and I go looking. It was like, oh, look at all the women. And I like pulling them up on IMDb. I don't know how many people of color are involved in it, but it was like there were a lot of gals in that, and it's just one of those. I've started. looking because I feel like it makes a difference if it's not all white dudes in the room. Um, so we want to hear from you guys. What are you watching? What should we be watching? I will fully admit that I got to be able to laugh. Like I still haven't watched it was on HBO, Pedro Pascal. Zombies, but not zombies because there's a whole science thing behind it and The Last of Us. I have not watched that yet, even though I've been told that is one of those things where everybody who's told me I need to watch it, none of these people agree on television ever. And they've all told me that I need to watch it. Um, it's funny. I love the show Pose, also a 3-season show, I believe. Um, Loved it. I still can't bring myself to watch it all the way to the end because when I do, it'll be done. Like, I need to. I should go back in and actually watch it all the way to the end. It was just one of those, I hit a point. I was like, but then I have to say goodbye to Pray Tell and all the rest of them in Electra, and I don't want to leave the ballroom. So it's just kind of on a pin somewhere. I did just listen to the Billy Porter book though, so um do, do, do. Right, the last one. Showrunners. If you've learned nothing, if you are a showrunner now, if you are aspiring to be a showrunner, 3, 5, and 7, those are all primary numbers, right? Prime numbers. Prime numbers. I'm gonna blame my ounce of gin that was in my beverage here. Um, Prime numbers. Stick with the prime. 3, 5, 7, or it's a soap opera and it just runs forever. Those are your choices. Or it's The Simpsons. I was explaining to my mother, like, a lot of the British television programs I remember, it was like either a series of 3, sometimes 5, but mostly like 3 or 5, or always on. There was no, like so you have, like, Doctor Who that's been on once it starts, it just stays on the air, and then so just if you're creating a new show. Also, mm, the same with Doctor Who. Yep, yep, or doing both. I will say I've known a lot of Whovians, and I've been a Doctor Who fan. I consider myself a Doctor Who fan from the time I was small. Doctor Who was designed by the BBC to make small children interested in science. That's what it was there for. It's like Sesame Street. If you are not into it later in life, I'm sorry, again, showrunners, Moffat, Davies, all y'all, It's not a show for grown-ups. It's Sesame Street. You have things in there so grown-ups want to watch with their children, but the whole point of the show for 50 some odd years has been make children interested in science and not dicks. That's it. That's the whole point of the show. Like, keep talking, I'm doing the swoop because we have entered a whole new realm. Yep. You love it. Mhm. Mm. Elvish, yeah. Elvish, Dwarvish, but Elvish definitely, there's a whole written language and stuff. You don't wanna spend 35 pages with a tree, you know? I think 8 to 12. Yep, yep. Mhm. That fits. Like, we used to watch Star Trek and Doctor Who were just part of my little kid TV. But my early doctors, right? If you look at any of the Tom Baker stuff or John Pertwee, those were my first doctors. They're one of the John Pertwee bad guys was like a void. Okay. It was some alien void or something. And if it touched you, you disappeared forever. Okay. The void was an actor in like a sack with plastic baubles taped all on it. The great thing about Doctor Who was the lousy production value, because to a small child, that was terrifying. To an adult, that is entertaining. It's like or one of the ones in the new series when they rebooted it, um, God, I think my niece was little at the time. She's, an actual full grown up now. Um, but it was like I was watching the episode and the monsters had zippers in their foreheads because they had to put on human suits and they would like unzipper their head. Um, when it was just them and the doctor, and it was like the just hunks of mucus, I think it was basically the alien form that stank to high heaven. I mean, it was just like, "We need to get out of this disgusting body." That's it. That's who May is. Okay, I finally put the sorry. Hi, guys. Welcome to my brain and how it works. It has bothered me for 3 seasons that I know the character of May from somewhere. She is one of the evil villains on that Doctor Who. That's who she is. That's where I know her from. I know her from other places too. I but all right. Oh my goodness. Yes! I do. Ew, ew. Nope. Just Yeah. Oh, the trouble with trouble. Oh, yeah. And yes, it was and that's one of the things, we don't need all the big fancy stuff. Uh, truly, sometimes old school is just better. I don't know. We have gone down so many rabbit holes. It's Friday. We should we should but this was so nice. We cover a lot of big topics. Again, if there's a big topic you want us to cover, drop it in the comments. If there's a TV show or something like that, again, relationships in TV shows, super fascinated in that, super fascinated. Um, how far there's so much we can talk. Television, let's be real. Television shapes who we are and it helps inspire. Like we just went down this whole rabbit hole with ridiculous. I mean, the Daleks are just pepper pots with a plunger on their face. Um, and they are one of the most terrifying villains ever. Even I'm old enough that I remember when the Daleks couldn't fly, children. And stairs was all you needed to get rid of the Daleks. I remember that. Um, it doesn't work that way anymore. They've evolved. They've evolved. They follow you now. They hover, they fly. It's a whole thing. Um, yep, my brain just interrupted itself. So if you help, we have. It is. My drink is empty, and wait, the folks can't see that I'm actually melting while I'm sitting here. It's very warm. We have no air conditioning in the house. Um, yes. In the future. Yes. This has been wonderful. Let us know if you've got another topic you want us to cover. Hit me up. Hit me up on the Facebook. Hit me up on my phone. I know some of you have that information. Um, or on the Instagrams. We'll figure it out and we'll see what we're talking about next week. It's gonna be actually oh, yeah, Mandy and I are gonna have to coordinate. I'm actually gonna be an extra in a movie next week. So we will see. We will see. We might have another fun episode with me learning how to be an extra again, which is a whole thing in and of itself. So anyway, thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here with us. May your weekend be calm. Like, yes, like, subscribe. May your weekend be calm. May your furry critters be well. May your family be well. Um, yeah. And I hope you have a great weekend. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.